And then there were two. It is now the Biden versus Trump campaign for the presidency. The challengers dropped out of the Republican and Democratic primary today, as expected. Nikki Haley managed to win one state last night, Vermont, before dropping out of the campaign today. And Dean Phillips won absolutely nothing, as expected, before dropping out of the Democratic presidential primary today. The Dean Phillips campaign was run exclusively on the assertion that Joe Biden is too old to be president. Democratic primary voters almost unanimously agreed that Joe Biden is not old enough to be replaced by Dean Phillips. Jen O'Malley Dillon, who is the chair of the Biden-Harris campaign after serving as the brilliant campaign manager 4 years ago, the winning campaign manager, released a memo today on the state of the race. And if you choose to pay attention to one campaign operative this year, it should be Jen O'Malley Dillon, because she was right about everything she said about the Biden presidential campaign last year. Today, she said upwards of 10% of voters remain undecided, much larger than the current margin between Trump and Biden in polling. And these voters are highly supportive of the policies of the Biden-Harris administration, like protecting abortion access, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, and defending the Affordable Care Act. These undecided voters are also the least tuned into politics of any group. As the general election ramps up, the campaign will aggressively engage these undecided voters, highlighting the stakes of this election to secure their votes in November. A significant share of moderate and Haley voters across the country are saying that Trump cannot count on their votes in a general election. So far, at least 1 in 3 Republican primary voters think that Donald Trump would be unfit for the presidency if convicted of a crime. Obviously, there is nothing more important this year for the Democrats and democracy itself than winning the presidency. The next best thing, the next most important thing, is the United States Senate. I, for one, don't believe Donald Trump is going to win the presidential election, but if you're one of the millions who is worried that he will, you should find ways to help elect Democrats to the United States Senate. The United States Senate should be campaign objective number 2, because if Democrats control the United States Senate, they can stop every single thing that Donald Trump tries to do legislatively. They can stop every single thing, every presidential appointment Donald Trump makes that requires Senate confirmation, every one of them. So, no, with Democrats in control of the Senate, Donald Trump will not have an attorney general in charge of helping Donald Trump get away with crimes and commit more crimes. With Democrats in control of the Senate, Donald Trump will not have a Secretary of Defense who is willing to violate the law controlling the use of American troops within the United States. With Democrats in control of the Senate, Donald Trump will not be able to confirm a single federal judge who would take away your rights, not one. The Senate is more important than the House because it controls the confirmation process. And so tonight, with every other news broadcast focused almost entirely on the 2 names that will be on the top of the presidential ballot in November, this program will focus on the second most important names you will see on your ballot. Candidates for United States Senate. We begin tonight with the winner of the biggest Senate campaign in the country last night in the biggest state. In a real democracy, if a Dakota gets 2 senators, then California would get at least 40 senators. California's population is 40 times larger than the population of each Dakota. But because democracy was not the first principle in the design of the United States Senate or the presidency, the people of California are stuck with only 2 senators, and the presidency is winnable by the candidate who gets the least votes, because the Electoral College formula is based on the same anti-democratic formula that has given us 2 senators per state. For most California voters that I know, it has never been more painful to be stuck with only 2 senators, as it is tonight. And that is because in California, in the Senate campaign, there were 3 Democratic candidates running for Senate against each other for the same Senate seat. And Democrats had to choose. Choice was difficult and the choice was confusing. Many Democratic voters believed that the candidates who lost the Senate race, the Democrats, would remain in the House of Representatives. Those voters didn't realize that other candidates were on the ballot yesterday for the House seats currently occupied by Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, and Barbara Lee. Each of those candidates made the all-or-nothing decision to go for the Senate, knowing that they could not legally at the same time run to keep their House of Representatives seats just in case. Each of those Democratic candidates would have won this race if the other two were not in the race. The last polls before the election showed Adam Schiff in first place, with Republican Steve Garvey, a former baseball player for the LA Dodgers, who's never held elective office, in second place, Katie Porter in third place, and Barbara Lee in fourth place. That's what the polls show. Almost every Democrat that I talked to about this wanted to see the Democrats win first and second place, because the top two candidates then face off against each other in November, and there would be no worries because a Democrat would absolutely win. I knew some voters who had their minds made up easily for Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, or Barbara Lee. My daughter loves Katie Porter, and so it was an easy decision for her. And of course, most Democrats always want to see Republican candidates crushed at the ballot box in California. They didn't want to see Steve Garvey in that top two, but that's not what happened. Adam Schiff, who had Speaker Nancy Pelosi's endorsement, and by far the most campaign money, came in first, and Steve Garvey, the Republican, came in second. And so it will be Adam Schiff versus Steve Garvey in November, which means, in reality, tonight, the campaign is over. No Republican has been elected statewide in California in over 30 years who did not fully support the Roe versus Wade established rights to reproductive freedom. The last Republican governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, fully supported Roe versus Wade. The three Democratic candidates introduced themselves to California voters this way.
When our democracy was in danger, he stood up. Adam Schiff took on a corrupt president. He fought to protect our values and the rule of law. Now we face an even greater danger. We need Adam Schiff more than ever.
I'm Adam Schiff, and I approve this message.
Washington, the U.S. Senate, drowning in Wall Street money and big pharma lobbyists. Katie Porter says enough. Time to shake the Senate up. Democrat Katie Porter's been called the leadership we desperately need. A watchdog, Congress's toughest questioner. Katie Porter insisting the Senate starts working for you. Detailed Porter plans to make housing more affordable, battle climate change, clean up political corruption, and disarm Washington special interests. Fighting for you. Katie Porter, Senate.
I'm Katie Porter, and I approve this message.
A lot of people talk about courage, but for Barbara Lee, courage is more than a word. It's her life story. Growing up in a segregated town and successfully fighting to overturn her school's ban on black cheerleaders. That took courage. Leaving an abusive marriage, earning a master's degree as a single mom, and winning a seat in Congress where few looked like her. Courage. Braving death threats to cast the sole no vote against forever wars. Real courage. Speaking up for families in poverty. Fighting for affordable health care, good schools, and legal abortion. Some talk courage. Barbara Lee lives it.
When we fight, we win!
It's time we elect Barbara Lee to the Senate to represent all of us with courage.
Tough choice. Imagine having choices like that on your Senate ballot. Adam Schiff's campaign, which had triple the amount of money of his nearest competitor, Katie Porter, produced twice as many television ads, including a group of ads that reminded voters what's at stake in the United States Senate by aiming that ad at the Republican in the race.
Want to know how Steve Garvey feels about Donald Trump and MAGA? Just ask him.
He did an exceptional job. We were safer under him.
No wonder Garvey wants to block Biden and Pelosi's progressive agenda and supports building Trump's border wall. Steve Garvey stands for Trump.
I voted
Mr.
for him
Garvey,
twice. Both times he was the best person for the job.
When they tell us who they are, we need to listen. Steve Garvey is too conservative for California.
Those ads helped Adam Schiff and at the same time apparently helped Steve Garvey because California Republicans who saw those ads decided they wanted to vote for Steve Garvey. Those ads might have lifted Steve Garvey to second place. Katie Porter thinks that they did and said as much in her concession speech last night. Strategically, the Democratic Party is probably, and I mean this strategically, much better off having one Democratic candidate for Senate facing one Republican in California, where the Republican is guaranteed to lose, as they always do. If two Democrats were running against each other for the same Senate seat in California, the biggest state, the most expensive state, it would be the most expensive Senate race in history. That title currently belongs to Pennsylvania, where the Senate race that John Fetterman won in 2022 cost $373 million. That money was used only on a Senate race. None of it was available for any other campaign. Pennsylvania has two expensive media markets, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and neither one of those markets are as expensive as the three big California media markets, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego, where the campaigns have to buy TV ads. A hard-fought Senate campaign could cost $500 million in California. And with two Democrats on the ballot, all of that money would be coming from Democratic Party donors. And none of that money would be usable for the presidential campaign or for other crucial Senate campaigns. Adam Schiff might not want you to know this. He doesn't want you to know this. But according to recent precedent, he doesn't need your money anymore. You can send it to other Senate campaigns because the last Senate campaign in California cost the winner $4 million. And the winner is someone most people, even in California now, haven't really heard of. Senator Alex Padilla. Senator Padilla did not have to spend real money in his reelection campaign to win 61% of the vote against a Republican, because that's what happens to Republicans running statewide in California, no matter how much money you spend. And that is what's going to happen to Steve Garvey in California. It's over. As to the Schiff campaign's strategic choice of attacking Steve Garvey in campaign ads, ask yourself, would it have been better if the Democrats attacked each other in campaign ads? They didn't do that. In a fair world, Barbara Lee would have become a senator a long time ago, but that would have required Dianne Feinstein to decide not to stay in the Senate for 30 years. In a fair world, Katie Porter would be moving up to the United States Senate this year, and Adam Schiff would be moving up to the United States Senate this year. And in a really fair world, California would not have only two senators. This year's California Senate election is yet another hard reminder. Life isn't fair, and politics isn't fair, doesn't feel fair sometimes. It also reveals a problem that only the Democratic Party has, the problem of more political and governing political talent and governing ability in people like Katie Porter and Barbara Lee than there is currently room for in elective office. You can hope that the Biden-Harris administration puts Katie Porter's skills and Barbara Lee's skills to work in their next term in office. Newly elected senators can often feel intimidated the first time they rise to speak in the Senate chamber. Almost all of them do. When Senator Schiff does that next year, rises to speak in the Senate chamber, it will not be his first time.
He has betrayed our national security, and he will do so again. He has compromised our elections, and he will do so again. You will not change him. You cannot constrain him. He is who he is. Truth matters little to him. What's right matters even less, and decency matters not at all.
3 points. In your language, it's a field goal. You former NFL player, you just got to get a field goal that Beto O'Rourke couldn't quite pull off 6 years ago. You got to somehow close those 3 points that separated Beto O'Rourke and Cruz 6 years ago.
Well, thank you for having me on, Lawrence. I mean, obviously, a lot has changed in those 6 years. Dobbs has come down, and here in Texas, we're dealing with the reality of what a near-total ban on abortion looks like. And it looks like Dr. Austin Dennard, who's my guest to the State of the Union tomorrow, who's a mother of two, who had a much-wanted third pregnancy, got the news that we all hope we don't get, that the pregnancy wasn't viable, and she had to flee our state to get the health care that she needed. And it's outrageous what's happening in our state. And it's also outrageous that we have a senator like Ted Cruz, who's only focused on himself, who, when crisis hits our state, abandons us, who attacks our democracy. We can do so much better than him in Texas, and I know that we're going to cover that gap.
And Ted Cruz has never answered the concerns of, a woman like such as you've just described, who's going to be at the State of the Union tomorrow night. He's never said, here's what I think should happen in cases like that.
Right. No, in fact, he's somebody who has never been camera shy, flees every time a camera or someone wants to ask him about the predictable results of the policies that he has championed and pursued, which has led us to this position that we're in now in Texas, where we have these tragedies of women who are victims of rape and incest with nowhere to go. We have stories like Dr. Dennard and Kate Cox, but we also are seeing the downstream impacts, Lawrence, in so many areas of our economy, our medical schools, our universities. This is going to have so many wide-reaching impacts for us. And the only way we can solve this is by codifying Roe v. Wade at the federal level. And so I need folks' help to make sure we can do that. I ask you to go to ColinAllred.com, get involved with us, make sure that we can beat Ted Cruz in November.
So Joe Manchin not running for re-election in West Virginia, that means chances are Democrats are not going to hold on to West Virginia. That would take them down to 50. If they lose any other seat that they currently hold, and there's some tough ones to win, they could drop out of power. If you can turn Texas, if you can turn those 3 points, all calculations change, and it would give the Democrats very, very likely at least the 50 that they would need to control the Senate.
Yeah. Well, you know me, Lawrence. I'm a fourth-generation Texan, and I'm focused on Texas first. And when I played in the NFL, we had these guys who were always looking out for themselves, and we knew who they were, and we called them me guys. And we have a me guy in Ted Cruz representing us in the Senate right now. And so obviously there's incredibly important national implications around this race. And I do think it's our best Senate pickup opportunity in the country. And I want folks to realize that and get over whatever your past scar tissue is around Texas. But it's also just true that for us, for 30 million Texans, we need to have a senator who cares about us, who's not a me guy, who's actually looking out for all of us, who's not pitting us against each other, who's not abandoning us when we need them. That's really what this race is going to be about, is that we in Texas can do so much better than Ted Cruz. And with folks' help, I am confident we will.
Texas Democratic Senate candidate Colin Allred, thank you very much for joining us tonight on your first full day of being the nominee. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you.